is multipathing all of my missiles and making red side suffer. Welcome to another Beer Thunder top tier slop tier video, and this is going to feature some Mirage 2000 gameplay. And it's been a while since I've done a top tier video, and kind of the reason I'm doing this is number one, channel variety. Like I try to get some variety out here so that everyone has a little bit of everything to look at, but also the F15E patch is gonna drop any day now. It's gonna hit top tier, and a bunch of new people are gonna come in. They're gonna want to play top tier. The population's gonna explode, and then over the next 2 months, the population's gonna dwindle back to what it normally is. And this is the normal WarThunder patch cycle. All of the same ever-present flaws of enduring confrontation are still present in top tier. Nothing is going to fundamentally change, and it's not going to really change with this patch, I don't think. Like, the F15E is going to come in. It's still got AMRAMs, cracked acceleration, and it's going to have a metric ton of fire and forget, like glide bombs, ordnance, so that's going to be a thing. The Su-34 is going to be a thing. Same kind of deal. It's going to be like the one Russian plane that has a good radar, but kind of dookie flight model, and it'll be like a pseudo fighter / ground attacker. And really the only thing that I expect to change is that your top tier sim games might actually end on tickets a lot sooner, because it's going to be a lot easier for people to complete objectives, like the glide bombs with like 20 of them or whatever the ridiculous amount of them is that the 15E can carry. You can pretty much just fly over any of the ground battles, click a couple of times, and the whole thing is wiped out. Same thing with the Grom 2 glide bombs. If you get to mid-map, you can probably destroy around, I think it's either two bases or something like that. So you have the ability to kind of just like go up and destroy bases, and bases bleed tickets, ground battles bleed tickets, capturing air points bleed tickets, like everything bleeds tickets. And because people can complete AI objectives safer and can do it more readily, games might be shorter. So might not be seeing these 2-hour games. You might see games end in like 50 minutes to like an hour and a half now. So you might see like a reduction in playtime, but we're gonna wait and see. I'm gonna wait and see. I'm gonna let the patch come out, probably a couple days, showcase some new stuff. Like the glide bombs are gonna go on the A10C, so I'll probably make a glide bombing A10C video, how to attack all the ground battles and do all that kind of stuff, because I do find that aspect of the game fun. Like, I need variety, and speaking of variety, I have adding a little bit of variety to my playstyle by breaking multipathing and trying to use notching and do the historically accurate immersive thing and playing the game correctly. And really the reason for this isn't really just variety, it's also viability, because if you stick into multipathing the whole entire time, your radar missiles when you're shooting them head on at each other over the water, they're most likely not going to hit people. The other thing is that if you merge with people and you go up and there's more than one, and especially in a game like this where my team is at a disadvantage anyways, I go up, I break multipathing, then I die if I'm like in a close fight. The same thing is if I'm too low in the Mirage 2000, the flares eject out the bottom, they go into the water, and then I eat a 9M in the head on. And right now, what I've kind of come to realize, my personal opinion, is that the 9M is still kind of the biggest threat to me at this tier. The other thing is, like, recently I have gotten comfortable with having the RWR go off all the time and being a lot more confident in how the RWR works, and kind of like being able to notch multiple missiles at the same time and kind of getting a feel for it. Because notching in principle is not hard to understand. You turn 90 degrees to the missile, either left, up, right, down, etc., and the closure rate goes to 0, and then you flare, you chaff, not flare, flares and chaff are different, but I mean it's the same button, who cares? And the missile locks on the chaff, it flies away, you fly one direction, the missile flies the other, and it goes away. And this makes sense in theory, but with the way that RWRs work in WarThunder, even if the missile has missed you, if it's locked on your chaff, you don't really have a really good indication that you've like chaffed enough. So usually what happens is people chaff too much. People end up turning back into the missile when they think they've defeated it, and then they eat it, or they turn into it, and then they eat the second one that's coming. And a part of this is just understanding what's going on, but also the other big part of it is just like getting comfortable with the idea that you can hear the RWR going off and the missile's going to miss. Just having the confidence. And the way to do this is really for everyone. Just go get a friend to shoot AMRAAMs at you and just practice it. Because if you practice it, you'll get comfortable with it, and then you can kind of like start playing around. And once you can like reliably defeat the missiles, you can start timing things and going in and like using the HMD to counterattack. And with missiles like the R-77 and the MICA, what they are really good at doing is not necessarily attacking from long range. They're good at shooting from short range and pulling in. So when you have like a MICA and you've got the guy like 30 degrees, 60 degrees off of like your left, like basically the radar limit, you can shoot the damn thing and it's more than likely going to pull in. So what I've been doing is I'll go to altitude, and I'm not trying to get to like 10,000 meters. I'm not trying to get to any kind of arbitrary number. I'm just trying to get above the guy, and usually I'll either put him like at the 12 o'clock and just like fly straight into him while climbing, or if I'm actually playing smart, I will fly into them, but with them like 60 degrees offset. So like this right here, I'm like climbing, he's 60 degrees off, and as I'm going up, I'm trying to present myself as a target that he's going to want to shoot at, and he's going to want to like pop out a multipathing to shoot at me, and that should kind of bring him up into my missile. And because I'm shooting in a range where the missile automatically goes pit, well, I don't really need to keep radar lock. So now I'm diving down. I'm not really trying to dive to get the missile into thicker air. Like as long as I keep it 90 degrees off to the right or left, it's not gonna hit me as long as I drop some chaff, about 5 pieces or whatever. I don't have an arbitrary number. I don't have it like set up where I'm like, okay, I'm gonna like hit the button 5 times and it's like this. Like no, I just kind of do things by experience and intuition. That's why I say like, hey, go to a custom game, let your buddy shoot missiles at you for a little bit and kind of get a feel for how much chaff or how little chaff you can get away with, and it'll definitely improve your gameplay. The other thing to think about is top tier's not like, in a lot of ways it's easy to kind of get like the baseline of kills, but also doing all of the same stuff that I do at the same time is not going to be like super intuitive. Like it's taken me a while to get to this point. Like I kind of like took a step back and like thought about it, and at any one point I am using 3 different joysticks at the same damn time. Like I'm cranking my hog with like the big joystick, but then on the thumb I have a mini joystick which I'm using for the target selection cursor, and then on the throttle I have another mini joystick on the thumb that I'm using for like moving the radar up and down. And while this sounds like, well, it might look easy in theory, or it might look easy when I do it, kind of like learning how to do it and do everything all at once, all at the same time, is it's not super easy. The same thing with like looking at the right sensor at the right time is not super easy. Like it's really easy to get overwhelmed with beeping noises all of the time. It just never stops in top tier. So like it takes a while. With that being said, with this kind of gameplay style, I'm getting more kills with it, and it's more interesting to me. It makes the MICAs that I'm carrying a lot more viable. But it also means that in the learning curve to this, you're gonna die more in the front half of things. Like your learning curve is gonna be painful as far as learning how close you can get to an AMRAAM before it actually slams you. Before instead of like just going to notch where you have to go to like just brute force chaffing. Like AMRAAMs, once they get close enough, really one of the better ways to get rid of them, especially like point blank, is just like spam the shit out of chaff and then they go stupid. And that's every radar missile, and it's really only if it's not coming from like some kind of like slight head-on aspect. So you need to get it 90 degrees or more to one side or the other, and then brute force chaff at like close range. And that's why in some of these instances where I'm getting really cheeky with it, I'm getting really close, I am still dying, and I'm trying to show that yes, even though I'm doing something different, I am not immune to making like mistakes. Anyways, we convinced Greek Air Force to eat a mica for breakfast. And at this point, with the two Magic 2s that I have, I'm looking at going back to the airfield and resupplying. And we're going to transition to what is fairly typical gameplay for Denmark, which is hugging the deck at low altitude, kind of sticking at or near multipathing height to defeat radar missiles. And that's really one of the reasons I think that Denmark and Sinai are very popular, is because it makes it a lot easier to rely on multipathing. Denmark is especially popular because like you have basically two spawns where you get the top left corner of the map, and then you get like one airfield in the right corner, and that's kind of it. And usually when you have the right side spawn for red side, a lot of your gameplay is going to be taking place in front of like that airfield, in front of like the lagoon slash bay or whatever. And that is just the reality of the game. You're gonna get your spawn pushed, and especially on red side when you don't have the super squad, you're probably going to be at around like 4-player disadvantage. And working from that and trying to get a win out of that is actually it's fairly difficult. And the way that you have to do it is you have to kill blue side players quickly, and you have to have match presence. You have to be willing to push your way forward and kill them fast enough that they quit the game. Kill them fast enough that the teams will stay somewhat even, that at least at any one point people are respawning and people are not able to complete objectives. Like, it's really easy to play quote-unquote passively, kind of go like towards your side of the map, and you'll get kills and you won't die, but you also won't be preventing people from bombing bases, destroying your carrier, destroying your AI targets, stuff like that. You won't be able to push yourself forward to kill AI targets as well. So in order to kind of like put the whole entire team on my back, I have to play a little bit more aggressively, and kind of like playing at altitude right here allows me to get kills I otherwise normally wouldn't, and I'm not being forced to like merge anymore. Now, if blue side players adapt and everyone kind of does the same thing and everyone understands how notching works, then obviously things probably revert to more or less like normalcy, and it'd be the same story day later. But we get this guy, he comes up, he takes a mica, he gets hit by it, and he thinks that he's fine, he's going to try to like fight me. But I kind of like game the system a little bit, game the radar screen, so that as he comes up, I kind of like travel to like the outside of him, like where he can pull, so he can't like directly pull into me and force a trade with a like a radar missile. And that's kind of how like I work around that. This next guy here, this is kind of like where I'm being lazy. Instead of like pinning him to like the top left or right corner, I'm waiting for that missile warning to happen and trying to smuggle my missile in at more or less as close as possible. Because even though you have the missile warning going off, you do have quite a bit of time to get to your like notch angle and then work from there. And as long as I have a missile going out against him, he has to either do the same thing or he has to stick to multipathing. And if he sticks to multipathing and he flies underneath of me, I can kind of like split S on top of him, and now I have like all the position in the world to kind of like shoot at him with a Magic 2. And so that's kind of the way this the whole thought process works out. Now with the RWR, one of the things to keep in mind though is your blind spots are more or less like top and bottom. So if a guy shoots a missile directly below you or from directly above you, you won't get an RWR warning. But more importantly, when you roll the plane into a missile, where you orient the top of the plane towards the missile, your RWR warning is going to disappear. So one of the things that you'll see me doing in this game is I'll start pulling, but then I'll roll level again. And when I'm doing that, I'm trying to get like any potential missiles back into being seen by the RWR so I can at least react to them. And does it work all the time? No. Does it work most of the time? At the start, no. As I said kind of earlier, like the learning curve for this is it takes a while. But I have experienced pretty consistent success with this so far, and it's not reliant on just being on maps that are, like Afghanistan, where they're not flat, where people will kind of like naturally kind of wander out of multipathing more often. That's why I'm kind of like showing it on Denmark, because Denmark is one of those maps where you're running into mostly the multipathers, which is I am a proud multipather. I do strongly believe that the game is better with multipathing than it would be without it, because I think without it the game turns into whoever's team has the more missile slingers at any one time wins. And I mean, we've kind of already seen a lot of this with kind of how Blue win rates are kind of like, I don't know, 90% most of the time. Like my F16 games for the last like 2 or 3 months has been like 90% plus win rate. So it's not like, I don't think the game is in a super healthy place. It's maybe not as bad as I thought it was going to be, but it's still current year and it's still current problems. Now, with that being said, just because things are bad doesn't mean they have to be completely hopeless. There are some things that you can do as a red side player that will make your gameplay experience better and will give yourself a fighting chance at winning. Namely, like the most obvious one is just play in a squad, play with friends, play with people that understand how the game works. There's a pretty dedicated red side enjoyer community that wants to win games. It's kind of sick and tired of being told to eat shit and enjoy it. That you can typically find them pretty much playing any day of the week. I'm definitely probably one of those people. I usually have a couple of friends that I'm playing with. Like, why would I play the game by myself if I don't have to? The other thing is, like, if you're willing to join games early on, you can kind of stave off like the inevitable defeat and collapse of your team and keep the enemy team from running away with ticket advantage. Because usually what happens is if you put equally skilled players on both sides, the blue side has more players at the start. They keep building up more players because red side quits, the attrition sets in, and then you end up in like a really shitty situation. It's like an 8v2, and guess what? The 8 guys can go do more objectives than the 2 guys can, and by the time you join a game that's like an hour and a half in, blue side is already like built up like an 8,000 gajillion ticket point lead, and then you can't really do anything with it. So if you play in a squad, if you play with good players, if you learn to like recognize names on the scoreboard, like if you play with a guy and he's like Russian, you don't know how to speak Russian, and you just recognize like, hey, I was on Dover Strait and this guy like got like 47 kills in the flanker. Like I might look for that name again, because if I see him in a game and I join his game and I back him up, me and that guy can probably offset all of the inherent disadvantages that our team has and kind of like carry things forward. And keep in mind, by itself, PvP doesn't necessarily win games, but PvP will prevent like the enemy team from going for bomb points because you can defend the bomb points. It will prevent them from destroying convoys, capturing zones, winning ground battles, that stuff. And that stuff all kind of contributes to preventing you from losing on tickets. At the same time, if you're good at PvP, people will stick around. When people feel that the game is fair, when the game is kind of going in their favor, they're more likely to stick around. They're not getting waffle stomped. It also means that players on your team that are in SU-25s or in whatever, or eventually SU-34s as soon as this video drops, are going to have the ability to actually go complete the PvE objectives so they can bleed enemy tickets and do all that stuff. Like, you can join the game soon enough and it won't go completely to shit. As opposed to if you join a game towards the end, it might have already went completely to shit and then it's irredeemable and you can't save it. But anyways, I do think most of these games are pretty much savable up until about the 50-minute mark, and that's kind of what we do. This is a game where I'm not playing in a squad. I have Farflex on my team, who's like one of the red side players who's usually like squatted up with me, but we're not using voice channel in this video. And I'm just doing this to show that even when you don't have the super squad, it is pretty possible to win. Now, unfortunately, winning this game did take around 2.5 hours of my time, and that's a pretty big time commitment. That is, I think, unreasonably long for most people to dedicate to a single video game in order to eke out a single win. And eking out the single win also meant that there are times in the game where I'm 4 versus 1 or I'm 2 versus 4, where those numbers, that like battle of attrition has happened and we have lost the attrition war, but the enemy team's never able to actually build like the ticket lead, so we actually do stay competitive, and people do keep joining, and things look bleak. There are low points in the game where I'm like, this is pretty bleak, and we persevere and then we win, but I don't expect this to appeal to everyone. I don't expect red side players to go, I like getting my shit pushed in and I'm gonna get my shit pushed in until I get good and just start winning. Like, it's not really I don't think that's a reasonable expectation. It's the way that things have worked out, but I don't think that's a reasonable expectation. And ideally, I'd want the game to be balanced. I'd want everyone to feel like they're playing a game where it feels like the odds are not stacked in someone's favor all of the time. Anyways, we're going to transition back to some gameplay commentary. Right now, I'm just contesting the cap zone. I think this is part of the game where our team is down in the numbers. And when you're down in the numbers, you really don't want the enemy team to start capping cap zones, because the cap zones do spawn ground battles. And then they come in with F-16s, with AGM-65s. They win the ground battle. And then it's kind of like you lose twice over. And you don't want to do that. And the Mirage 2000 isn't particularly great for air-to-ground stuff. And it's not really great at carrying air-to-air stuff and air-to-ground stuff at the same time. So not letting them cap the zone is kind of like, it's kind of a net win for me. So that's kind of the calculus that goes into that. We go back to base, we take off, and we're approaching F-16. We know that he has us on radar, but he's turning around. He's going the other direction. We don't have any RWR stuff going off, so he probably didn't shoot an AMRAM at us. So we're just going to keep getting closer, and we're looking at the RWR, or the radar return correction, and we're waiting for him to decide whether or not he wants to turn into us or not, because he is getting pinged. He does know that he has a Mirage 2000 around 90 degrees to his right, hopefully, and we're just waiting for his dot to start swinging either right or left back into us. And when he swings right or left, as soon as he passes that 90, we're going to shoot at him and then turn kind of like the opposite direction so that he can't counterfire an AMRAM at us. At least that's the theory. In practice, he's just going to keep flying away from us for basically the duration. He might be distracted by shooting missiles at our runway, and that's what the big mark coming off of his plane looked like, and he's dumping chaff right now. We're just going to kind of spike above him. And this is that position where if he decides to counterfire us, he's going to have to come up above multipathing, and then he would eat a MICA. And because he doesn't do that, we're just going to come in down behind him. If he decides to break multipathing again, we'll fire another missile. Otherwise, we'll just come in with a Magic 2 and just shoot him from direct rear aspect. But he breaks multipathing. He comes up. He's getting ready to like counterattack. He knows he's getting attacked. And, well, he does not pass go, does not collect $200, does not win. So that's kind of more or less how that works out. And now we're going to put ourselves in a bad situation because the RWR is going off directly to the left. We got one to the right. And we know that we can notch the missile from the left. But really, this is the situation you don't want to be in because you're not going to notch them both at the same time. So we're going to go into multipath, go head on with one guy, try to dogfight him, try to just win everything. And this is like one of those positions I don't like being in because like I am so low to the water that the flares that I drop are going to hit the water. And if he shoots a 9M and he shoots it at the right time, it's very likely that I just die to the 9M. That is one of the my big predicaments of this gameplay style is I lose the sense of timing to kind of not correctly multipath, but get the timing to like schizoflare like the 9M, because you never see the 9M. You can be staring at the damn thing, and when you see it, it's when it's flying into your face. And you're like, oh well, I guess I'm gonna lose. That guy starts flying away. We shoot a MICA at the other guy as he's coming in, and we're really just kind of we're in desperate straits here. We get one guy that was coming in directly at us. We'll fly low, and I'm going to turn back into the other guy, and we eventually we survive that one. We survive that one, and we go low, and we go back to base, and it works out for us. But you're not going to always have like a perfectly managed situation where it's like, oh yes, I understood this. Like no, like there was a lot of seat of the pants gaming too. Anyways, this next bit we do set up for the one guy that's at low altitude. We shot at the one on the right side of the radar screen, and he died to a friendly, and we get surprised by an F-16. This guy might have been running radar off. He might have not had the radar angled on us. We didn't know that he was there, and we didn't pick him up on radar initially, and he gets his missile off first. And this is one of those situations where I think brute force chaffing is probably one of those things that you want to do. You don't really need to be super conservative with it. We switch to the HMD PD, and we do pick him up visually, and he broke off his attack because he probably assumed that because we were high up, that his AMRAM was going to hit, and then we weren't going to be able to defeat it that close. And we rain in a MICA from above, we get the kill, and we move on to the next little bit. And now we are being attacked by an F-15 and an F-16, and I've got the missiles notched, but I'm already low, And my thought process here is that I don't want them to get close enough to shoot a side aspect 9M, so I'm going to attempt to turn into them and go into multipath. And then I'm going to get overwhelmed with the fact that I have like 3 different levers that I'm pulling at the same time on this like locomotion of pain that I'm going to hit the water, I'm going to crash, I die. Oh no, Squish died. That's a thing that happens in a video game. That's like pretty it's pretty normal. It should be expected to get overwhelmed. Now, we have re-engaged and we are back and we are shooting at a guy that's basically at his airfield. And the reason that he's at his airfield is one of the guys that I was chasing decided to turn around and run directly at his airfield. It is almost completely inevitable that at top tier, you are going to be engaging people near their airfields, or you're going to be engaged at your airfield. Like, that is just the way the game naturally works. People look at the radar, they follow the radar contacts, and as soon as you see F-16, they fly towards that. They see F-15, they fly towards that. People run to their base for defense. Guess what? If you chase a guy to his base for defense, and a guy spawns there, are you not going to shoot at the guy? Do you expect him to take off the runway and not shoot AMRAAMs at you? Like, there's nothing preventing you doing it. There's no unspoken rules. Everyone's going to do it. To me, I don't think it's that big of a deal, just because the alternative could be a lot worse. The alternative could be S-300s and Patriots that cover half of the map, where there's a narrow band of space in the middle of the map that you can actually like go above 2 feet of altitude in, where you can actually play, and then the game would just turn into I shoot missiles from the cover of my SAM sites, you shoot missiles from the cover of your SAM sites, and then the team with the most players just blows up all the SAM sites, and then one side gets spawn camped and the other one doesn't because it just has more players. So the alternative might not be as good. Now, with all that being said, with this gameplay style, with this change, the 9M is still a big threat. The 9M is probably the hardest thing for me to deal with on a consistent basis, because like you don't see it. The only way to really know when to flare it is if you're going head on with a guy and you just assume he's going to shoot one, or if you do like the flare flower spin around thing from behind. Other than that, you flare it based on gut feeling, and when you flare, it suspends the seeker head, but it has like inertial navigation, so it'll still keep going and it'll turn back on. So like side aspect, it's really hard to deal with. And when I have 9Ms, I look for those side aspect shots, because like you don't have a missile warning marker, and the MAWs in this thing, it's nice to have, but it doesn't trigger all of the time, and a lot of the times it triggers on everything. It triggers on flares, so like you'll see it going off quite often, and it's triggering on flares, which is I don't know if it's realistic. It is what it is. So the MAWs, nice to have. Is it game breaking? Is it decisive? No, not really. At least not right now. Maybe in like 3 months. Maybe I'll take some more time to appreciate what is actually going on. I'll have a different answer in 3 months. But right now, MAWs, nice to have. Not game breaking. Not like completely decisive. Anyways, this video has been about 30 minutes long, so I think it's time to wrap it up and bring things on home. Overall, adding altitude gameplay, adding notching, not relying on multipathing, so far seems to be fairly productive. The biggest thing is, get your buddy to shoot some AMRAAMs at you and get comfortable with reducing your time between attack and counterattack, where you can counter-launch your high off-bore sight missile at people, and you will find that you'll start to have a little bit of a better gameplay experience. But also, when you do it in random games, don't expect to just join and like shit on everyone right away. Like, there is a learning curve to it, and you're probably going to die more often in the front end. But after that, it'll get better. And the same thing can generally be said about playing red side top tier. It was bad. It's still not great, but we can still win. It just takes a lot of effort. Like, you can look at the reward screen. You can go back and my team went through a total of like 16 players, and their team went through like 40. The amount of players that play blue side just outnumbers red, and it's probably going to be that way for the foreseeable future. Anyways, that's the video.